And then we do have, actually, would like to make 2 adjustments to the agenda. First, the item number 11.2B, the high school bell schedule change. Principal Downhausen had to go to our girls basketball playoff game as an admin is required, and we have 3 teams in the playoffs tonight, so we're stretched a little thin with the board meeting happening. So he is not here to present, so we'll put that on for the next meeting. And then I'd like to request, if it pleases the board, to put public comments on non-agenda items immediately following the pledge. Our student trustee, Julian, got a public comment card, and he's supposed to be warming up for his playoff soccer game right now. You'll notice he's in Jersey, so it'd be nice to let him make his comment and be able to go. Yeah.
All right. Yes. Rose, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Moving on to public comments on non-agenda items.
So we have 2 public comments. Actually, we have, unless you're okay, Mike, you were first, but is that okay if Julian goes before you? All right. So go ahead. Julian, if you could introduce yourself, and then you have 3 minutes for your public comment. Thank you.
So, hello, I am Julian Johansson Hufrey. I am the student trustee. Normally I'd be on that side, but as Mr. Van Hoovel said, I do have a playoff game to go to. So I just wanted to talk briefly about the document right in front of the trustees, the HHS leadership class position statement regarding the district not meeting mandated spending on teaching salaries. I brought this up at the last ASB meeting in the leadership class, and the class felt pretty strongly regarding this discrepancy. And so I wanted to draft something up a little bit more official than my typical report. So that's what you guys have in front of you guys. It's not a mandate. It is just a position statement. So thank you guys for your time. And yeah.
And Julian, good luck tonight. Win. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Moving on, we have Mikey from.
I have a handout for you too. All right. My name is Mike Ephraim. I am a teacher at Healdsburg High School, but also the Healdsburg Area Teacher Association president this year. I'm here to speak on the issue of Ed Code 41372 violation found in the audit report during the January board meeting, requiring a minimum of 55% of the expense of education towards teacher salaries and benefits. I was surprised that there's no discussion regarding the issue amongst board members after the audit findings were reported. Ed Code is not a recommendation. It is California state law, enacted by the legislature and signed by the governor. Local school boards, that is you, and county office of education are responsible for complying with these laws. Laws are not there to be followed only when convenient. So I decided to investigate this issue further as the president of HADA, and what I found is alarming. I looked back 5 years, and you have the information in front of you, that each year HUSD was granted an exemption for compliance with the law because of serious hardship to the school district. I completely understand that why Ed Code 41372 has this clause as a protection for the viability of a school district. As you see in the handout provided, though, each year the exemption was granted, the district had a reserve well above the minimum 13% dictated by HUSD, and actually averaging more than 25% over the past 5 years. I don't consider this serious hardship. Ed Code 41372 stipulates that a minimum of 55% of the expense of education be towards salaries and benefits of current employees. In the application for exemption, HUSD has offered reasons of retiree benefits and special ed funding for the exemption. Neither of these qualify to be counted towards the 55%. You can read the list of categories that can be recounted in the audit report. I have a copy of that, but you also have it in your last board packet. I urge you to read that yourself. Over the past 5 years, the superintendent, the director of business services, the HUSD board of trustees, and the Sonoma County superintendent of schools have given exemptions that have cost the hardworking teachers of HUSD over $2.6 million in lost wages and benefits. The teachers of HUSD ask our students each day to be honest with the work that they do. As a school board, you're a governing body, and it's time for you to put an end to this dishonest skirting of the law enacted to protect the people for whom I represent. Thank you.
May I ask a clarifying question on this?
We're not supposed to follow up, but you can ask me to follow up on a specific thing.
Well, no, my question is on the number, it's the total salary, if you will. It could be an increase in salary, or it could be increase in number of staff or whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's not just actually in the formula, it's not just teacher salaries and,
Okay, all
Yeah,
that is,
yeah,
all the
so-
benefits of it. Okay, thank you.
All right.
all right, so we're on to celebrating our success.
Okay. We have the HES/FMC Pathways Project School Finding through Sonoma Environmental Education Collaborative.
Hello. We have a slide deck. There it is. Nope, that's not it. That's it. Okay, so around this time last year, maybe a month or so earlier, I was, oh, what?
Is it on?
Yeah,
Okay, there
it
you
is
go.
on. Sorry, pull it this way. Okay, so about this same time last year, maybe a little earlier, I was approached by SEEK, which is the Sonoma Environmental Education Collaborative, about becoming a Pathways Project school. And, you know, I get a lot of emails, and I read it, though, and I thought, wow, this could be really great. So I looped in Principal McGuire, and we investigated, had meetings with them, and decided that it was a great benefit for our schools. Go ahead. Oh, she's got it. Here we go.
So as Principal Doherty was saying, SEEK is a consortium of local environmental organizations, and their goal is to provide opportunities for students in underserved communities. So as a Title I school, which is why we were approached, and the goal is to provide opportunities for students to explore outdoors through field trips that then are tied in with the standards. And so they work really hard with the collaborative staff, works with the staff of these local organizations to really make sure that the field trips are tied to the science standards. They come, and we'll talk about this, but meet with our teachers to really make sure that the field trips are what we're looking for and that meet the needs of our students and are tied to what we're learning in the classroom.
So the environmental, the other E for, I already forgot. Oh, thank you. The environmental education, thank you, Pathways Project. All of a sudden I was like, uh-oh. Is pretty amazing because it's it takes care of so many pieces of the field trip. It pays for everything, but even more than that, it brings in these organizations such as there we go. Thank you. Brings in all these organizations like Sonoma Water, Pepperwood, Land Paths. These are places that we were going to go anyway, and in fact, we have been going, but we've been paying for it with other dollars. And now, all of a sudden, these experts are coming to our school, collaborating with our teachers, and making plans to take our students to these great trips.
And so this is kind of the rollout for this year. We had a kickoff meeting. The staff from SEEK came to both of our campuses. The teachers had an opportunity to look at all of the menu of offerings of field trips and select those that were of interest to them. And then we have a meeting coming up in March. She's coming back to check in with staff about how the field trips have gone. And that is part of the agreement, kind of our give back, is that we will give time and provide feedback to the providers about the field trips. And then we'll also, start next year the same. The next slide was, here. So again, the great part is that transportation is covered because that is a big cost of field trips. And so it freed up, so for our teachers to be able to think about more field trips, because oftentimes the busing is what really costs a lot. So including that was really been amazing this year. And I think it's our first year being a pathway school. So we're just kind of figuring out what all the offerings are for Fitch. A lot of the ones, and I think for HES as well, we're doing what we had done previously. But now, and I think throughout this year and next, that we'll start to look at other offerings.
Okay, so you can take a look and see that all of our grade levels are doing field trips, and some of them are doing multiple field trips with this program, and we're not paying a single penny. So it's just fantastic. Really, really a blessing for our students.
And some pictures.
Pictures of little kids doing field trip things. Do you have any questions?
I have heard a lot of feedback about the wastewater field trip that Gus went on. And I have to say, he learned so much. It was really, really interesting. And if anyone's ever watched Ted Lasso, how they took a trip down into the sewer one time as anyway, it was really full on. Yeah. He just said they really learned a lot. They saw the solids. They walked the catwalks, and then he came back right away and was like, oh, well, don't worry, nobody drinks this water because now it's gray water, which we use for irrigation and other, and I sort of was like, he picked up so much. And I just love field trips like that. And I love when he comes home with real experience and learn things. And I just think this is awesome.
That's great. I do want to just quickly mention one of our teachers at HES who retired last year, Connie Petterite, is who kind of turned the SEEK people on to us.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you to Connie Petterite.
So when I looked at the field trips, they looked like maybe they were tied into the project-based learning. Is that?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And I should say also, you can see in fourth grade, in third grade, some of them are field trips, but then also educators come into the classroom too. And sometimes both of those things are happening. Educators come into the classroom, and then we can go to a field trip too. So they're really working and looking for feedback to get better and to really make sure that it is tied into what we're doing. And so that was one of the things when they had the planning meeting, was sitting with the teachers saying, what are your units? Let's find some things that match those.
Yeah, it's great.
And is the expectation that this will continue? This is multi-year,
Yes.
Not just a one-time?
We're in it, I think. We're in it for as long as they have funding.
Yeah. All right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are great. Appreciate it.
All right. Moving on to approval of the consent agenda. Do I have an approval or motion?
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? Nope, don't see any. Okay. All right, Jumping ahead to 11.1, school business. This is a public hearing. So we will now convene to a public hearing to receive public testimony concerning proposed trustee voting area plans associated with the district's transition to a by-trustee area election system. Under California Election Code Section 110, the board must hold at least 2 public hearings prior to the holding of public hearing to adopt a final trustee voting plan.
All right, Jonathan, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Good evening, district staff, community, and board. I'm Jonathan Salt with F3. I'm joined by the demographer from National Demographics Corporation, Dr. Justin Levitt. He drew the 5 draft map options that were released last week and posted on the website that we'll kind of walk through today. Justin, if you want to say hi, and then I'm not sure that I can see the screen, or is it up there yet, the presentation, or should I share?
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. If you want me to show the presentation, let me just get it ready to go.
Okay, so they can see it, but we can't see what they see, Justin. So I'm going to I'll just share my screen and so you and I can see on the Zoom. Oh, nope, now we can see it. Okay, perfect. Okay, next slide. All right. So tonight marks a kind of a turning point in this transition process. We had 2 pre-map public hearings in January prior to the demographer being able to draw draft map options. And now tonight is our first of 3 map public hearings. So as part of this process, Justin will walk through the 5 map options that he's prepared, talk about what they do, what they mean, the data related to them, and answer questions. There'll be 2 additional map public hearings after tonight. Both will be in March. And then at that 3rd map public hearing at the end, there'll be an additional item, which will be a resolution for the board to essentially vote on a map option and then to initiate a petition to the county committee. So why all this is happening is because of the CVRA, which says that if a school district or city has at-large elections and that at-large system impairs the ability of protected classes to elect candidates of choice or influence an outcome of an election, that at-large system might violate CVRA. The only safe harbor from a CVRA claim is to transition to a by-trustee area or district-based election system. So here, the board or district will be divided into 5 roughly equal population areas, and 1 trustee will ultimately be elected from each area only by the voters who live in that same area. So essentially, your neighbors, so to speak. It does not impact the term of office of any currently elected board members, but eventually there will become 1 trustee per area as the system gets implemented. So here, based on the 2020 census, the district has a little over 16,000 people that reside in it, and that includes the 2 elementary feeder districts that feed in. So that means that with 5 trustee areas, each area will have about 3,200 people per area. That's total people from age 5 minutes old to 150 from when the census came out. Doesn't matter if their kids attend your school. It's just total people, total population. So there's allowed to be a variance of up to 10% between the largest and smallest area because census blocks are different sizes and shapes and population densities. So, they're not all going to be exactly 3,200, but, they'll probably be between, 27 or 2,800 and 3,500 or so. We also cannot split a census block because then we lose track of our population count. And so, Justin, we'll talk a little bit about the district-wide demographics.
Sure. As part of our project, we've done a report on the demographics of the district, including an analysis of liability concerns under the Federal Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Federal Voting Rights Act, which protects protected class communities, groups that have historically faced discrimination or barriers to registration and voting. And as part of that, we look at our different demographic, our ethnic groups within the community. We see that the total population, 62% non-Hispanic white, 31% Latino or Hispanic. Now, if we go to the next slide, on the next slide, we also show our citizen voting age population. That's the population over 18 with U.S. citizenship that a lot of courts, including the Ninth Circuit, use in a lot of their voting rights analysis because they refer to it as the eligible voter count. Think about the demographic differences between Latinos and non-Latinos. And Latinos tend to be younger, less likely to have U.S. citizenship. So it can substantially affect these numbers, as it does in our case. The total population is 62% non-Hispanic white. That increases to almost 80% non-Hispanic white by eligible voters or citizens of voting age. That Latino percentage drops from 31% to 17%. And especially at a school district, you might see this looks very different among the demographics of the students than it does among the general population. This is also what we see if we look at registration and voting. Registration and voting comes from a different data set. This is directly from the statewide database using surname data. So it's not perfect. It uses last names of individuals, but it gives us an estimate also of what the Latino registration and voting patterns are. And what we've seen in the past two elections, as far as we can tell, is that somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15% of turnout is Latino. We also look at other factors as part of our demographic analysis, such as income, renters and owners, ability to speak English. All of these factors can influence the creation of communities of interest or areas that should stay together. They're no substitute for your full knowledge of the community, but they may factor in terms of drawing areas or justifying why we drew certain boundaries. So if we go to the next slide, we looked at where do we see the Latino community. And in particular here, we're looking for concentrations that are geographic. The Federal Voting Rights Act requires that, we look for geographic concentrations. What we see is that, as with many rural districts or districts that include a large rural area, some of these census blocks are quite large, but have very few people. For example, some of those pink blocks indicating 75% or more of the population is Latino or Hispanic have fewer than 5 residents, including that large pink block in the Alexander Valley Union School District, right on the right kind of on the eastern end of the district. Only has a handful of residents. Where we do see a little bit more of a concentration is within the city of Healdsburg, particularly along the freeway. And so that's kind of an area that we strove to keep together in different maps. As you'll see, we don't really get majority Latino districts, but we do get districts with a higher than district-wide percentage. In terms of other protected class communities, we don't see any concentrations of Native Americans, Asian Americans, or African Americans that would rise to a voting rights challenge. It doesn't mean that there aren't neighborhoods that we might want to consider, and that could be under communities of interest. This is just for the purpose of federal voting rights law. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jonathan to talk about, introduce the draft maps before we go into each of them in detail.
Thanks, Justin. And I think actually, when you talk about the district-wide eligible voter for the Hispanic Latino population of 17%, I think in each map option, there's at least 1 or 2 areas that does have an increased concentration, generally sort of in the city, usually getting into the mid to upper 20% per area. So some increased influence there. In terms of the criteria for drawing these maps, it's very regimented by both federal and state law. Justin was talking about it a little bit. The number one criteria is equal population. So based on the census total population, we have to have balance. You don't want to have one trustee area with 10,000 people and another one with 400 people, because then your voting power is very different. But again, we can have a little bit of variation just as long as it's under 10%. Next slide. So that's sort of the criteria for complying with the US Constitution and California Constitution. Again, population balance. The compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act is what Justin was talking about. Or are there geographic concentrations of protected classes, and can they be, does it make sense to keep them together to the extent that they are concentrated? We certainly don't want to split up concentrations of protected classes that would dilute voting power. Next slide. These next criteria all existed prior to 2024 when this law changed, but now the state has given us a ranked order of priority for these considerations. So after we look at total population balance, after we look at the protected class concentrations, we then look at, is the map contiguous? Meaning, does one trustee area like kind of touch itself constantly versus have kind of one area, we'll call it islands of a trustee area, and then a different island of a trustee area within the jurisdiction? Can't do that. They have to be touching. Local neighborhoods or communities of interest. So this, and there's a bit of a broad definition here, but it's essentially what you all think makes sense to keep together locally. Could be that everyone plays in the same Little League, could be church attendance, could be anything. But so that's kind of the second criteria here on the list. Then we look at if there's a city or census designated place here, Healdsburg proper would qualify. Then we look at natural artificial boundaries like major roadways, railroads, rivers, things like that. And then geographical compactness. You generally want the areas to not have kind of odd shapes and fingers to the extent that the census blocks aren't shaped that way. The final one here is these maps were drawn without the demographer having any idea where any current trustees or any current or former candidates live. They're drawn blind just based on the criteria. Justin does not and will never know where any of you live. I only know that because I had to create election sequencing, but I don't tell him. So these maps were drawn essentially blind therefore they're not created for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against any incumbent candidate or party. Next slide. Just to sort of preempt some potential confusion, the way that the maps are named or identified are based on just a given color that has nothing to do with the map itself. There's a green map, an orange map, a teal map. That is just a way to describe it that doesn't actually have anything to do with the map itself. On every map option, trustee area 1 is shaded in pink, trustee area 2 is shaded in blue, trustee area 3 is green, area 4 is purple, and area 5 is orange. On every map, regardless of if it's the green map or the purple map, that is what this means. So again, just think of it as a name. We just sort of think that giving it an arbitrary color shows less favoritism than saying map 1 or map 2 or map 3 or map A or map B or map C. But so hopefully avoiding some confusion there. But now I'll hand it back to Justin because he's got a handful of maps to walk through.
Yeah, just in our experience, talking about map 1 and district 1 kind of can get really confusing fast. And so trying to come up with some alternative naming scheme for the different options is something we take very seriously. So I want to start with the green map. And I want to stress that we've tried to create as many different options as possible. You're trying to comply with the requirements and also the direction of the board in the last meeting. And one of the requests of the board was to completely ignore the boundaries of the elementary school districts to the effect that we don't draw lines around them or around along those boundary lines. And so that's something we've tried to do throughout all of the 5 draft map options. None of the maps, in this map, for example, and some of the others, maybe one of the elementary school districts is whole, but we always try to divide at least one. For some other purpose. In addition, as you'll notice on all the maps, we do have our suggested sequencing. We are required by law to put a proposed sequencing on the maps. That is something that will be adopted as part of your final resolution to the county committee.
And just a quick note on that, so I don't have to go through it on each of them. The way that I've done the sequencing is I've figured out where the incumbents live. And so if there's someone whose term expires in 2028, for example, we wouldn't want to set that area open for election in 2026 because, I don't know, say I moved there and ran, we'd then have 2 trustees in that area unnecessarily, and then we would have an open area, so at least 20% of the district would have no representation. And so I've created these to avoid that scenario of having someone else win a 4-year term while there already is somebody with 2 years of term left. And then for sort of tiebreakers, the law says choose the area with kind of the greatest sort of following the purpose of CVRA, which we've interpreted to mean the one with the highest citizen voting age population of protected classes. So when there's been an option for kind of to choose either or, that's how we've done it.
So to start with the big picture on the green map here, we did want to show you an option I'll just say we've created 5 very different options, and we don't expect that all 5 of them are going to land the same way. And part of this process is removing any maps that don't work or you don't like. And I say that because the green map was one that had a very specific goal in it. It was to minimize the division of the city of Healdsburg. And so in this particular map, Area 1 in pink is completely outside of the city of Healdsburg. And even those little islands, those little red areas, kind of not contiguous with the city, those are little islands of the city of Healdsburg. And in this map, we've put them all into 4 trustee areas. So this illustrates the problems and challenges with some of the requirements of state law that we want to show you so that you can decide whether or not this works for a community or doesn't work for a community. I say all the other maps divide Healdsburg into all 5 areas, and I think it's very natural to need to do so in order to achieve a lot of the other purposes, including communities of interest. However, in this map, we did want to show you at least one option that creates an area entirely outside of the city of Healdsburg. And as you can see, what that means is that the rural areas on either side, including most of the 2 elementary school districts, are in the pink trustee area 1. If we go into the next map and see a little bit more detail around the Healdsburg area, one of the things this also allows us to do is to use the train path to create an area that's west of that, area 2, and an area that's east of the train tracks, area 4, both that have a higher than average Latino population. The rest of the city of Healdsburg is essentially divided between areas 3 and 5, including a couple of areas of unincorporated area outside of Healdsburg in order to get to that ideal population in each of those trustee areas. One of the things about this is that a lot of those census blocks between the freeway and the tracks are very long and don't have a lot of divisions or cuts in them. And so this one allows us to create one that really links those long blocks together in area 2. One of the other things we've done according to the direction is we've ignored, I believe it's March Avenue, and we've linked the neighborhoods both north and south of that street in this map in area 4. If we go to the demographics on the next slide, we can see that there are these 2 areas that have a higher than average Latino population, areas 2 and 4, both in the high 20% range.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
When you have a boundary line drawn on a street, is one side of the street in one district area and the other side of the street in the other district area, or both sides of the street included in one of the included in the same district area?
So that's a great question. If we go back to the map, but let's go back one more slide. One of the challenges of census blocks in the first place is that they by and large follow streets themselves, so that people living on each side of the street are going to be in different census blocks and will end up in different districts. That's part of why we try to find streets that are bigger or serve as better boundaries. But until the census actually draws more boundaries along the middle of the between the streets along the property line. Right now, the census mostly draws blocks along the streets themselves.
Okay, so just to clarify then, because I happen to live on one of the boundary streets, and so I just am confirming that on my side of the street, people might vote for me were I to run again, and across the street, they would vote for Mike or someone else, another candidate.
Yes. That is possible depending on where the boundary is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The boundary is drawn on my street on every one of these maps. So that's fine. And I had that question before, and I'm sure it doesn't just apply to me, which is part of why I'm asking. And I have a predisposition to be concerned about how democratic this is going to end up being, that it just seems crazy to me that one side of my street I might be lucky enough to represent and the other side I wouldn't. But it's just for campaigning reasons, it seems weird, but I guess plenty of other places are doing it successfully. So anyway, I'll stop.
Yeah, it certainly is
valid concerns. I think, as you know, that Justin drew these without knowing where anybody lives,
Right.
Just based on following the criteria. And so, at some point, a a line has to be drawn somewhere, and if someone wants to run for office and they live really close to that line, they're gonna, their voters will either be to the north of where they live or to the south of where they live, or east or west, just where the line is drawn, but it needs to be drawn somewhere.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, unfortunately, census blocks tend to follow the actual streets themselves because of basically how they were created originally. They just looked at a map and drew the line along the street, not along the property lines, kind of in people's yards. And certainly in the future, we're hoping to work with the census on creating more of those block divisions where they really should be drawn, through the backyards. But as of this point, we're still dealing with that with the street-based alignment that they use today.
Thank you. I understand. And actually, just to make a more good faith comment, I actually think that the way the boundaries are drawn does make sense from a neighborhood standpoint. And it's weird that my across the street neighbor wouldn't be able to vote for me, but all the people that live in the boundary as drawn, I think they're very sensible possibilities. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. And so just to look at the next option, let's go to the orange map. The orange map is the first of two options that kind of have two rural areas in areas 1 and 2, and then 3 divisions that are more or less entirely within the city of Healdsburg. In particular, if we look at this one, what we've done is, if we go to the next slide, we have our 3 areas, 3, 4, and 5, actually in this map, entirely within city limits. So we've again, following the Fair Maps Act to show you some of the options that the Fair Map Act would ask us to show. Look at some options that keep as much of Healdsburg in Healdsburg-only districts or trustee areas as possible. This one, then, you can kind of see between 3 and 5, that block that goes right along the freeway, between the freeway and the train tracks, is kind of elongated and goes up all the way to Dry Creek or March Boulevard, and goes all the way down quite a long ways. So we have to make a decision about which area that block would be a part of. This one uses kind of a north-south division of central Healdsburg and then creates an eastern trustee area 4 within the city. The north side of Healdsburg, along with the rural, is linked to the rural areas to the east. If we go to the demographics of this, again, this map has 2 higher than average Latino population areas. In this case, areas 3 and 5, both again in the high 20s.
If we can leave this up for 1 second, just to use this one as an example, when you look at this chart, obviously underneath where it says orange map, you'll see a 1 and then a 2, 3, 4, 5 column. That's for each trustee area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so for each area, say for area 1, there's 3,121 people, which is 82 people. If you look at the next line below the perfect number of 3,202, I think it was, or 3,203. And so that's 2.5% below the perfect number. And so if you kind of slide all the way to the right from that 2.56, you'll see a number that says 9.18%. That's the map's variance. As long as that number is under 10%, the map is okay for total population. And then afterwards, you'll see the percentages based on total population and citizen voting age. But I just wanted to kind of clarify what this looks like for each of them so that it makes sense.
I have a quick question. I'm getting way ahead of this, but as populations change, do the map change? Do the areas change on the map?
Yes, every time the census comes out, so every 10 years, the process for reviewing and adjusting. So in 2031.
Yeah. So turning to our third map option, our purple map, instead of kind of just simply doing an east-west split of the rural areas, this one has a little bit more of a north-south split of the rural areas. Again, a second option with 3 areas entirely in Healdsburg proper. If we go zoom in a little bit, I say with 2 of those areas, 4 and 5, are entirely within Healdsburg. Area 3, there's a street that's not in Healdsburg, but that is basically connecting the 2 neighborhoods of the city that are in Healdsburg, kind of the trying to create a district that keeps the north end of the city all together as much as possible, in at least one of the maps. And so if we look at our demographics, although we weren't able to get more than one area with a substantial Latino population by citizen voting age, this is a map that does achieve a 50% Latino district by total population. Essentially, it's not possible to create a majority area by that citizen voting age population number. But one of our trade-offs is that we can look at as we look at the maps is we can get two areas into the high 20s with our citizen voting age population, or really one area that is a majority Latino district by total population, but only 27, 28%. So no better than having two districts in the high 20s from a citizen voting age perspective. So it's kind of one of those trade-offs that we want to think about in the different maps, and it's one of the reasons we drew the purple map. Turning to the next map, the teal map, one of the things we wanted to look at in the teal map was creating four corner districts, or trustee areas that reach out into the four corners of the district, and basically area 3 becomes our central Healdsburg trustee area. This one has the most divisions of the two elementary school districts. They're each divided into at least two trustee areas, and they all include pieces of parts of Healdsburg as well. Area 3 being the only area entirely in the city. That being said, some of them, areas 4 and 5 in particular, have a larger percentage of their population within the city. Area 1 in particular has a larger percentage of its population outside the city. You can see what that means in the central city. We have 3 in the center and the others go out from it. That said, this map still has, or if we go to our demographics, 2 areas with a higher than average Latino population, areas 1 and 3. So we do continue to maintain that same voting rights approach as we go through the different options. Lastly, the yellow map. This is sort of, what if we drew a district trustee area in the north, and we wanted to keep those 2 trustee areas within central Healdsburg, but we were able to split the elementary school districts at least into 2. Area 1 is the area that would have a majority of its population outside of the city, and the remaining areas would have most of their population within Healdsburg proper. If we go to the zoomed in map, we can see that areas 3 and 4 are really our central Healdsburg divided north-south, and then Healdsburg itself is divided into the other 3 areas. If we look at our demographics for this, this map also has a two predominantly Hispanic trustee areas, including the highest percentage of any of the maps in area 3, both for total population and for citizen voting age population. So we felt this was a good option to show you kind of doesn't achieve everything we wanted to achieve in the teal map. For example, getting 2 trustee areas each into, or different trustee areas into those elementary school districts, but it does achieve some other things, particularly in the city, keeping that core of Healdsburg as together as we could possibly do. And so these are our first takes at our draft map options. Certainly, we want to show you a range of possibilities tonight, and we look forward to hearing your comments. I think Jonathan has some closing remarks.
Thank you. Next slide. And so this is just all 5 maps next to each other. You can kind of, if you pick a color is kind of the way I'd look at this, pick a color and then see how it changes per map. You can see kind of where the maps change more simply that way, because I know it's a bit overwhelming, but there may not be a perfect map, but these are just kind of different looks and different things to see what the community, what the board likes or doesn't like. Next slide. So by the way, these don't have to be the only maps. If there's suggestions or tweaks to these, Justin can make changes up until a week before the maps are adopted. I think it's March 27th. So, if you want to see something different or see if it's possible to do, I like this one, but what if we move the line here? Kind of a question. It may be possible to still create a valid map that way. So just feel free to share those comments, community and board. But remember, these do not change overall boundaries. It doesn't change attendance boundaries. It doesn't really change even how the board is governed. Each trustee still owes a duty to the entire district. So it's still one district with common goals and challenges. Next slide. As quickly as this process started, we're rumbling along here. After tonight, there'll be 2 public hearings in March, and then at that March 27th public hearing, the next item will be a map adoption resolution. Next slide. For those of you following at home or who want to learn more, the district has a dedicated tab on its webpage under the school board section that has all of the information as it gets released and added typically to sort of that red column on the left. This was screenshotted before the maps were released, so there's more information there now. You can look at all of the map options. You can zoom in. You can look at the data. There's even a interactive link, so you can click on it. It's almost like Google Maps style, and you can toggle between different options and zoom in or search addresses or change the topography to look like, imagery Google Maps. So, sometimes it's hard when you look at the map on a piece of paper where the lines actually are. So that is helpful. There's an interactive map option link there as well. With that, we're happy to stand by and field comments from the community and comments and questions from the board. Thanks.
All right. As part of this public hearing, members of the public may submit comments on the establishment of voting area boundaries for the new trustee voting areas that will be established as part of the district's transition from an at-large election system to a by-trustee area election system. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to make comments on this matter and this matter only. We have received no cards from people who wish to address the subject during public hearing. Do we have any comments or questions from the board?
I thought that one of the issues that Rose had brought up was about the Alexander Valley and West Side schools being attached somehow to Healdsburg. And so it just appeared to me that both the teal map and the yellow map attempt to do that. And I thought that was a valid concern because it says right in the, not in that slide, but one previous, that when you serve on the school board, you are responsible for the entire school district. Even though you might be elected from one area, you still have responsibility for the entire school district. And Rose's comment last meeting made sense to me. So I think that those two maps address that.
That's interesting. I get the logic behind trying to keep sort of the city together, but I also feel like it feels like the rural areas are an afterthought or something. You know what I mean? Which is not the intention of this at all. So I would agree with you. I kind of like when the rural parts of the district are connected into the city limits, parts of the district. So far, not really any serious logic or a reason behind that other than a feeling around that.
Yeah.
I did have a question for the speakers about, I think once or twice you've mentioned something about two of the elementary schools being in different districts. Why mention that?
That's Alexander Valley West Side. So that was to
we're not
Judy's
talking
point.
about our two.
Not ours. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like, one's in one area, one's in another. Who cares?
And I think
yes, the feeder districts. Thank you.
The feeder districts combined are about 1,500 or 1,600 total people with both of them combined. So even if both of them are in the same trustee area, it's still half the population of that area. So the populations are small enough that even if they are fully intact, and I'm not saying they should be, but if they are fully intact, the influence at most would be a third of whatever trustee area each one was in. It would be about 1,000 or 700 or so of the 3,200 in any given area.
Yeah. Even in the green map, where they're basically in the same area, they make up less than half the population of that area.
Again, we're not advocating for any of the maps. We just wanted to share that information that the total population of the two feeder districts is very small.
And I said the only reason we focus on the city is because of the way that the Fair Maps Act is written. Wants us to look at that specifically as part of our analysis, but there's no necessary reason for that.
I hope this comment isn't too general, but this is just what's reeling through my mind as I'm looking at these potential maps. And they do address the concerns that I raised at the last meeting. I just feel like when we look at our student population, which I feel like that's who I'm representing. So, I think about our students and families, and the demographics of our students and families don't look like these demographics that we're using to make the decisions about the maps. And I understand that that's a necessity based on, a number of factors, but I just can't help thinking that as trustees, at least I have an obligation to think about, the students that we're serving and making sure that their neighborhoods and their communities are represented well on the map. And we just don't have the numbers to do that if we're looking at strictly at voter populations. So, and I know there's other demographics that we've looked at, and there's always going to be limitations, but I just feel like it's important.
And can someone clarify for me that if there is a district where nobody runs for an open seat, it's appointing, and does that person have to be from that district to be appointed?
Jonathan?
Yes. So for right now, the 5 of you have been elected at large. And so if any one of you leaves for any reason, creates a vacancy, that appointment can be at large because you've been elected at large. But eventually, starting in 2026, when there'll be a couple of elections in the district by trustee area, and then 2028, someone who has won in that election, or if there is no candidate, because the system will have been set up by then, the appointments will have to be based on each trustee area. So, that would be a requirement, the same way that it's a requirement to appoint someone right now who lives in the district. Now it has to be in the trustee area.
I mean, that is logical. And I know that hasn't been an issue the last several years, but it certainly was when I got on the board, where people didn't run. And it's very challenging to find people to run. So that'll be an interesting bridge if we ever have to cross it.
Another question that I have regarding that is if you're in Area 2 and you decide to move to, I don't know, Area 3, move out into the country more, are you removed from the board at that point if you move, if your residence is out of the
Yes,
area?
we've had that before where once you don't reside in the trustee area. So we had a trustee that moved from Healdsburg to Geyserville, I believe, and they no longer could serve. Yeah.
So it's the, I mean, obviously you're still in the same school district, but if asking whoever's up there or looking at
If
us,
you switched areas.
if you switch areas, then you're no longer a representative on the board.
Correct. If you switch areas after there's been a trustee area election for
Right.
that area.
Right.
But right now, for example, the 5 of you can move anywhere you want in the district and you serve the remainder of your term.
Yeah.
But say, I'll just use me as an example because I don't live there. Say I lived in trustee area 1, and we had an election in 2026 and I won in trustee area 1, and in 2027 I decided to move to trustee area 4. That is the same as if I moved out of the district. I lose my seat.
Okay, thank you.
So I had a question. My name is Maria Hadley. I live outside of the city limits in the county. And I'm just concerned because it seems to me that in the outlying areas, you have 2 elementary schools. And if anyone was inclined to run for school board, you'd be running for Westside or Alexander Valley School Board. And it might be difficult to find candidates in those areas who would run for the school board in our city limits. And so it seems that we would be underrepresented because our trustee would always be appointed, or more likely to be appointed, because the people who actually live there would be running for those outlying school boards.
Yeah, and that was part of what Rose's concern was about, was not just having, say, a West Side district in Alexander Valley, because you would have that issue, and maybe you have a narrower interest in the secondary schools and not elementary as a result, right?
Right, and
So,
that's why
yeah.
the map that had the outlying areas tied to a piece of the city
Right.
seemed to make a little more sense to me for those people who live in those less populated areas.
I agree.
Thank you, Maria.
And I will say I ran originally living out of the boundaries of the
Of the
city.
elementary district.
So
Yeah.
well, I wasn't.
Right, you were an ABS
Yeah.
district.
So I was, I guess, a weird exception. But
Yeah.
My name is Gretchen. I'm new to this conversation, so I'm not sure if you guys have talked about this already, but it sounds to me that would very quickly eliminate renters from running across the board. Because if you have to stay in one place to hold your seat, being a renter is a very precarious situation. And so those people right away, when you're looking at the demographics, it feels like that should be an aspect of this conversation. So just want to say that.
Thank you, Gretchen.
No, I mean, I've already said that I think this is going to be less democratic, like in a bunch of ways. And I really feel like we should be doing everything we can possibly do to promote people who have a vested interest in the district, either through their children, their grandchildren, their other family members, and knowledge of. And we have a hard time sometimes having 5 people up here who want to serve. And so this really does limit things. But we are assured in the places. I was at the school board's conference in December and talked to quite a few, trustees from places that have already switched over to trustee areas, that it works fine. That's what people told me, was that it worked fine, and that some of the concerns that we might come in with are things that resolve themselves. It's just different than it was when everyone's at large. I didn't really hear anyone say the other thing. So while my teeth are itching as I'm listening to this conversation, I still think hopefully we'll land on our feet.
well, I think the other side of the conversation is that maybe it encourages somebody to run who wouldn't run because they only have to campaign to 3,000 people in their neighborhood or miles out up Skaggs Springs Road or wherever the heck, we'll see how close you are in your neighborhood. But that it maybe opens.
I think it really will make a difference, actually. I think there are people who do not want to campaign, but do want to serve. And you don't know going in whether you're going to have to campaign or not. So when you volunteer, you don't know whether you're going to be trying to hang signs with your name on them or what. And I do think it'll make a difference. And you have a chance to reach out to everyone in your district if you want to. And that's cool and less daunting than the whole town.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for all your comments. The public hearing received public testimony concerning proposed trustee voting areas is now closed.
One quick kind of closing comment. I think I know that Chris and the team know, but this will be my last meeting for the remainder of this part of the process. My wife is 9 months pregnant, and so 2 of my colleagues will be taking over for me from here, and they'll be with Justin and you the rest of the way for the 2 March public hearings, and then I'll be back in May, probably for the county meeting. So I just wanted to say thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan, and good luck with everything.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right. Moving on to 11.2, student learning. Update on Marcy Becerra Academy. So we have staff and administration from MBA.
And students and parents.
And
thank you all for staying so long and waiting.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. I haven't met everyone, but I'm John Weller, assistant principal at the high school and principal of Marcy Becerra Academy. It's my pleasure to introduce some staff members that are going to talk about, staff members and students are going to talk about some things we're doing and celebrations we have. And thank you so much for allowing this opportunity. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karen Mercado Izquierdo, And I am a recent hire at MBA last year, September 2024. Sorry. And my position there is the multilingual instructional assistant. I primarily work with a couple newcomer students, but I am not limited to them. I could work with any student in both classes.
Hi, my name is Karina Chavez, and I am also a new hire at Marcy Becerra Academy. I started in August, and I am the Student and Family Services Coordinator.
Good evening. My name is, I might as well get this tall for you. My name is Freddie Veras. I've been teaching about 18 years. I've been doing big picture learning for 10 years. The running joke is Tor's my work wife and we met online.
Hi, I'm Tor Top. I've been in the district for 5 years at Marcy Becerra. I'm in my 25th year of teaching, and we're thrilled to be here. I'd like to thank you for allowing us to present tonight. We know you have a very robust agenda. The miss would be to feel the pressure of time and the heat of the spotlight and stay clean and quick and efficient. And the bullseye would be to do what Marcy Becerra wanted to do. So I'd like to thank my colleagues, first of all, for working so hard, giving up so much, and helping me do this incredible work with youth. Stand up if you're here to support Marcy. I want to thank everybody who showed up to support us tonight, and you need to know that it means everything as we've built the plane while flying it in the air for 5 years. I think we're going to have Freddie start off with some data.
I trust you, Deb. You're good. Thank you. Yeah, 100%, Deb. Maybe just do it on the computer. Please stand by while we have technical difficulties. Perfect. All right, this is just a snapshot of where we're at right now. We have 28 students currently enrolled, and 15 of them are in their senior year. So you can see 75% of our students are Latinos, which is a pretty high percentage. 25% are special ed, which is why I'm particularly grateful to have Karen working with us this year to do some more one-on-one work with those students that need it. 71% of our students currently have an internship, and we'll talk about those more later. 36% of them are employed in meaningful work, so they're earning paychecks, and that's kind of the economics that they can learn how to do on the job. 6 of our students took SRJC classes last semester and earned 18 credits. We have more enrolled this semester, including 2 who are full-time. One's in a florist class and one's in an automotive class. We've gone on over 20 plus leaving to learn so far, which we'll talk more about later, their educational field trips. And our grad rates have risen from the 50th percentile 6 years ago to between 88 and 100% in the last 4 years. All right, I'm gonna bring up one of our students. Kevin Herrera is going to talk a little bit about internships and what it means, and then I'll give you some nuts and bolts of the internship program.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin. I am a current student in MBA, class of 2025. I currently have an internship at the Healdsburg welding shop right around the corner. Internship for me has been amazing. Has opened many doors, just a lot of things. Before coming to MBA, I didn't really have a clear goal on what I wanted to do in life, wasn't really motivated, was doing bad stuff, But after coming to MBA, I realized that MBA is just not a program to waste time. It's a program to have full potential in life. Like me, I've been going to the welding shop for about 8 months. I'm pretty good at welding. I feel like I'm pretty good at welding. Yeah, that has opened many doors. Even that, I might be able to get a job after I graduate. It's pretty cool. And it's just MBA is just a way of opening doors to the world, to the real world, and not just be in the class talking about what happened 200 years ago or, stuff like that. So that's why I really appreciate NBA. It has opened a lot of doors and, has helped me be a better person. And yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a tough act to follow. The thing you should know about the internships, and in Kevin's is a classic example, is we don't just give them an internship. We don't say, like, here's where you're going. It's interest-based. They find it themselves. We teach them the skills to go pursue it. They start with an informational interview where hi, I'm a student. Can you help me answer some questions? Who can say no to that? If that goes well and the rapport is good, then we follow it up with a shadow day where they were like, I want to learn more. Can I come hang out for half a day? And then if that all works out, then we move forward with an internship. The internship, full-time, 2 days. I don't even want to see them. And it's traditionally Tuesdays and Thursdays. They go to their internship and we treat it like a job. For me, it really is the cornerstone foundation of the Big Picture Learning Program. These mentors do incredible work with our students and they teach them things that I could never teach them. You do not want to see me with a welding torch in my hand. It won't end well. So the pictures you see in front of you are some of our students. The guy sitting on the engine block obviously was doing automotive. That's Kevin holding up the sign with the welding mask on. We have another student who was doing a barber internship and he is still doing one. And the other one was doing a stone cutter. So they're all holding the sign. That is their classroom. And they do a better job of teaching them real world skills than we can do in a classroom. So next slide, because I think it's just more. And here's just some more pictures of some of the cool internships. The one with the kids is a ranch in town that we have some students doing internships at right now. So they're working with animals, and then the end result is they're going to put together a marketing literature, like a comic book with artwork about the animals in the farm and why people should come visit. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts about internships. It is an absolute game changer when the students get into one. So we try to push them in, and now I will turn it back over to my work wife.
Hey, next slide, please. Leaving to Learns. These are an integral part of our program. You would call them field trips. We don't call them field trips because of the keyword learning. Before I get into some of the nuts and bolts, I'd like to call up one of our powerful seniors, Miriam Serrano, who's going to speak about Leave to Learns in Spanish.
Buenas tardes, yo me llamo Miriam y soy un estudiante de la Academia de Marcy Becerra. Hoy les estaré compartiendo qué son los paseos de aprendizaje y cómo es mi experiencia con ellos. Paseos de aprendizaje son paseos que nosotros salimos del salón y aprendemos fuera del salón. Aprendemos muchas cosas que nosotros nunca los imaginaríamos que aprenderíamos y también los ayuda a aprender nuevas cosas que los gusten y los interesen. También los ayuda para ayudarnos a buscar una carrera que los guste y si los gusta, pues aprendemos más de ella. Mi experiencia de estos paseos de aprendizaje me ha ayudado bastante a aprender muchos lugares que yo nunca pensé que iba a aprender de ellos. También me ayuda a aprender más cosas, como por ejemplo, yo fui a un paseo de maquillaje y de la cosmetología y a mí nunca me gustaba y me interesó mucho y ahora estoy aprendiendo cómo hacer maquillaje.
We leave to learn as much as possible because it's essential to the best and deepest outcomes for our students. The community is our classroom. This is an amazingly generous community and we have amazingly courageous students. More and more, we joyfully watch as our students step up to the higher expectations of leaving to learn in the community. We leave to learn from senior citizens, school children, winemakers, therapists, welders, cosmetologists, and anybody else that wants a visit from some truly amazing and curious students. Next slide, please. Our connection to the local Native American community is a mandate because Marcy Becerra is our guiding force, period. We're all on Pomo land, and we must honor that history and seek that connection, and we do as much as possible. Marcy dedicated her life to youth and community. She provided us with a blueprint that we must follow, and the local Native community has wrapped around us like a blanket and guided us in fulfilling her vision. There's nothing official yet, but we have a mural being done, and on March 31st, we're going to have a heck of a celebration. You'll all be invited. At this point, Karina is going to come up and talk about family engagement and student support.
All right, No, you're fine. I was going to have you skip to this one. This one's good. I have to lower the mic for me. I want to start off by saying that I'm very grateful to have been chosen to work here at a school like Marcy. I have seen the necessity and the power it brings to reconnecting students and families to education. These families are 75% indigenous to the Americas and who predominantly speak Spanish, as you can see by all those wearing those headphones right now. I have started to mend a relationship with both students and families who feel disconnected and disenfranchised from the educational system. This has driven my passion, my knowledge, and dedication to this community. So for the student family support services, for home visits, one of the academic advisors and I have gone on about 10 home visits to further support students and their families. We have seen an increase in parent outreach, collaboration, and engagement, not only to meet the students' needs, but to also provide emotional support for the parent. For monthly parent meetings, a way I'm reconnecting with families is to our school communities by hosting monthly parent meetings. So far, we've held 4. We're averaging around 5 to 10 parents in attendance. Those you see behind me are the ones who usually show up to those meetings. We host 4 large dinner events that greatly impact the parent and community involvement. For our family events, in which we invite students, families, and community partners, so far we've held the Fall Family Fiesta, where about 50 individuals attended. The Mary Mentor Dinner, where about 80 to 90 individuals attended. For court hearings, in my capacity as the coordinator for Student Family Services, I have accompanied an advisor to support a student and their family during a court hearing by testifying on behalf of the student and writing a letter of support that attests to their academic accomplishments, character, and role in the classroom. Restorative circles is something that we as MBA wish to grow on. This year, in order to better address the needs of one of our students, I have organized and led a restorative circle meetings with probation. I was present along with the students, the parents, advisors, and probation. The student was able to discuss their behavior, goals, and general health and well-being because they are the center of our teaching. For grant writing, I was able to seek out a partnership with the Community Foundation of Sonoma County to support our continued efforts in aligning, as Vitor said, our Native American initiative. Such support includes fundraising for field trips, guest speakers, service learning projects, social emotional learning activities, and trauma-informed practices throughout Northern California. I am honored to say that Marcy Becerra Academy was granted $13,000 for this initiative. Can you go back to the previous slide? Or the one after? Okay, yeah, there we go. Thank you. One benefit to the creation of my role in Marcy is the implementation of Wellness Mondays. We are putting students at the center of their social emotional learning. Every Monday afternoon, we work on wellness with our students for 1 hour. In certain cases, we remain in a large group setting or split up into smaller ones. Positive affirmations, self-affirming poetry, emotions, and the things we can and cannot control have been our main topics. We have teamwork, accountability, and communication that are the main focuses of our team building activities. Students indicate that they enjoy participating in wellness activities because they feel like they belong to a community. So I'm going to turn it back to Tor.
Next slide, please. We develop a ton of community partnerships with really deep roots. If you're going to find kids internships, you can't expect them to find it themselves. You've got to get them into the community. You've got to do leave to learns, and then you have to have a community that's receptive. And we hit a bingo in Healdsburg. We have a ton of people willing to step up. Building community partnerships is a huge part of what we do, whether it's sweating with volunteers at the Sonoma County Farm to fight hunger and helping to donate 27,000 eggs to the needy, whether it's reading to small kids with Greta and Bosco at HES, or whether it's painting with Pidge at the Healdsburg Senior Living Center in a Bob Ross type setting. Being in community is transformative for our students. It isn't something we like to do, it's something we have to do. It's our mandate. Lasting connections and relationships are curated and deepened as our students explore unique and special opportunities to engage. Next slide, please. The Uber community partner for Marcy Becerra has been Linus Lancaster. He's a hands-on, hands-in, and hands-all over kind of art guy. He meets our students exactly where they're at. He welcomes and he celebrates their contributions and puts them into the public eye. And he seamlessly and enthusiastically loops them into projects that engage them deeply, sometimes deeply in the mud. I'd like to call Linus up to help me with the next part. I just want to briefly, for a couple of minutes, talk through a couple projects we've comboed on, and I'll just invite him to jump in whenever. Deb, if you could go to slide 24. Sorry. Keep going. You're going to see a bunch of people with a whale spine. Standing on a beach in Richmond. Not a beach, the breakwater. No, I don't think he pulled it. Okay, so now what do we got? All right, so this project was a stop sign we did at Foss Creek Bike Path. Linus has an idea that public infrastructure can be art. I think he wanted the right angle stop sign at the plaza, and we got turned down right away because it would have caused gawking. So we settled for the stop sign on the Foss Creek Bike Path. We had a student named Finn who was at Black Iron Welding doing a welding internship, and we were also visiting Jendala and Artisans doing work down there. Jendala is a metal worker. Finn was welding. Linus has a stop sign idea, so we took the frame of a bike, we pressed it down, we turned it into a stop sign. That's everybody involved right there. Linus updated me. We made the handlebars too pretty. They got stolen. So now we're going to go back and we're going to guerrilla install a new set of handlebars and use so much stuff that if you want it, you're going to need a grinder, and it's about 10 feet in the air. So this year we were in a project with Linus. We were doing the flow meter from the bridge, and we've really immersed with Linus this year. And then he went from thinking he was wrapping the presents that were already square with paper for the tree downtown. And about 3 days beforehand, a whole bunch of plywood got delivered, and he figured out he was actually constructing the boxes and then painting them. At that point, he was really glad there was a school on campus that doesn't have scheduled classes and has a tremendous amount of flexibility and kids that love hands-on work. And we turned it into basically a 2-day Marcy Becerra and Linus work as much as possible, paint as much as possible. And the best part is one of our students, Savannah, was downtown when they flipped the switch, and she was just over the moon the second they flipped the switch. And then she checked the social media post, and of course he had put our students out front with their names. And he was worried about perfection because he always is, but if you really notice, it's the green inside the bow and it's the red outside the bow, but that really looks like a professional picture. So Linus does great stuff with not much stuff. The current project we're in is Your River Downtown. This is him and Hugh from the Healdsburg Foundation for the Arts. No,
Creative Leadership.
Yeah, that too. They want to go out and map the Ashikauna watershed. No one's ever comprehensively mapped the Ashikauna watershed. And he was talking through this project with me, and we figured out we got a bunch of kids that want to go take water samples and mud samples, and oh Lord, one of Savannah went rogue, started walking down the stream, came back with some clay, brought it to Lancaster, and he was like, this is the best clay I've ever seen in Sonoma County. Tor, what are you doing after school? Made me drive him back out. We got more clay. He's already fired it, I think. So those are the boards in our wellness center on the left, Your River Downtown. I believe half of that is still photos, half of it is videos. All right, just tell me when I'm screwing it up. This is kind of all the information we gather. We're taking pictures, we're doing water temperatures, we're doing soil types. He's forgotten more than I'm going to know, so I'm checking in consistently with Lancaster about soil types and loam and all kinds of cool stuff. Cool for him. I'm learning. But this is what we're hoping to develop, a comprehensive mapping of the watershed with all of this information. He wants to do some reclamation jars. We're taking little samples of water and seeing if we can get microscopic things to squirm and grow. And then he's going to map it. That's Fitch Mountain right there, with each of the different types of soil types mapped explicitly to where they are. That's the fired pottery. We did a flow meter project. So Savannah and some of our Marcy students, he wanted to have this idea to drop the tarp from the bridge, get a visual of water flow. Eventually there will be some salmon and lamprey painted onto that, painted with bamboo taken from the river and ink made from something on the river. Yeah, so it all comes back to the river. You want to chime in with anything?
Yeah, the gift project that we did. Hereafter, I will finish reading the email before I say yes. I really thought we were going to be wrapping cardboard boxes in class. 3 days, the day before Thanksgiving break, here comes the truck with a mountain of plywood on it. We had 3 days, and it was crazy. But the Marcy Becerra students stepped up in a huge way, and 3 or 4 of them together really got these done. It was amazing. And so it's wonderful that as part of big picture learning, they have the flexibility in their schedule to when opportunity knocks, they can respond in ways that even, my classes sometimes have more flexibility than other classes on campus, but even so, we can't respond as fast as Tor's kids can. And so that was really great.
Yeah. Did you get the flies?
Oh, yes. So on the river projects, in the process of doing the Your River Downtown projects was started with those video screens of going out, getting the videos, getting the data that our collaborating artist, Hugh Livingston, is primarily a sound and digital artist. And so he's taking river data, animating it, visual informatics and things like that, and running it on video screens. So when we came into the project, we started bringing in more videos and actual, sort of landscape footage and things like that. In the process of doing the field work, we found that there's never yet been a comprehensive atlas of the Ashukona watershed published. So we've taken this on as a book project that we expect to take the next several years. We're hoping to publish. And so it's just wonderful that the Marcy students, for the science and art components, are going out into the field on Thursdays, collecting all of this data and samples and so forth, and being out in the watershed, learning, exploring, mapping, and doing all this stuff is really remarkable. You saw in your packet the collecting the whale skeletons. This is something that we've been doing for 15 years now. How we got started is a long story, but suffice it to say, we periodically make ourselves useful to the California Academy of Sciences. When a marine mammal washes ashore, they have conflicting priorities with the Park Service, who wants it towed off the beach right now. The Academy of Sciences wants to keep it there for a few days so they can do a thorough autopsy, and the law says that if an educational institution gets involved, the Park Service has to wait, and it doesn't have to be a college or a university. It can be Healdsburg High School. So when we get the call, we've got the flexibility to get out there, immediately, which is what we have to do. You saw the whale vertebrae. We brought it back thanks to the fact that Tor has a stronger stomach than I do. If you look at the work sample from the ceramics classes in the box in front of you, you may notice a familiar shape in the abdomen of that dragonfly, which is a scan of the whale vertebrae that we fed into a program, and our student Celia Valaton 3D printed it for you. And then this is a project that's going on in the ceramics classes right now where they're hand tying fishing flies. And so we thought, well, here we go. So look for, in class, we clipped the point off the hook while we were working. I did not do these with these in case you want to catch a fish. Please exercise caution if you take them out of the box. Look for somebody gave me, and this was one of the slides, somebody gave me a pamphlet of the history of fishing on the Russian River, and I noticed a familiar name on it. I also learned that there's a traditional teacher spot on the river. So look for the Leroy Danhausen Memorial Fishing Derby coming up. Hope you join us there. If you lack any other fishing tackle, if one of you catches a steelhead with a whale, I think it'll be a first for Sonoma County. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Linus. That's pretty much it for Marcy Becerra Academy. I'd just like to close and say that since we went to big picture learning, this has changed, and we are a net. And we catch children and we make them the curriculum and the whole child. And I think we're one of the only places that exists. We work in interests, and I think this is one of the precious places kids, students, young people can fully engage in what they're thinking is going to be the rest of their life and play with it and throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. So thanks for all your support. Welcome 3 new board members. That's it.
Thank you, Tor.
Just real quickly, I wanted to thank the families that are here taking time out of their busy schedules. So thank you to the families that are here tonight supporting your children. It means the world to them and to us.
Oh, there we go.
And to the students.
Yeah.
When I talk about MBA to people out there, I don't even get half, maybe 1/10 as deep in all this. I knew we were doing a lot of great things, but I mean, this is great. One of the questions that always comes up to me, and I'll have you answer because I won't tell you what I say, but okay, so that's great that they're out doing internships, but what about the reading, writing, and stuff? How do you integrate that? So just do a 30-second.
So right now, all of you guys have packets in front of you that you're reading. You're taking notes and you're asking questions. You looked at maps that looked at calculations of population density, placement of different groups within our community. You weighed and measured and did critical thinking about those different maps. That's real world work. And that's what our students are doing. So it's not direct instruction as much as it is everyday learning that is driven by personal inquiry and personal interest.
Thank you. It's better than I could say.
Any other questions, comments?
I'd just like to comment that Jamie Kiff in the audience, and I visited a big picture school in Placerville maybe 6 years ago.
Isaac's here, Judy.
And I have to tell you, it was transformative as a trustee to visit. And I am so excited that Healdsburg High School, through Marcy Becerra Academy, is doing big picture learning.
And the full circle is that Isaac, who is our big picture mentor, who ran the school in Placerville that you
A
visited.
Healdsburg High School student.
Here.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I just want to say you guys are doing awesome work. And if at any point you guys can invite me to come, I would love to take some time out of my work day to come and hang out with you guys.
Yeah, you all have a standing invitation anytime you want. You can get a hold of Fred.
Freddie or Tor, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we visit internships. Just call, say you want to go visit internships.
Perfect.
I don't think there could be more than two of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can set that up.
Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, so we are going to move on to construction update. So Tanea, thank you for hanging on. Oh, yeah, okay, that's fine. 5 minutes?
All right, we are going to take a quick little break and we will convene in 5 minutes. Thank you so much.
Through our projects this summer.
Woo. Hello, it's that time of year where I'm getting really, really ready for summer for a different reason than all of your educators. So I'm just here to give you an update on the 2 projects we're gonna be taking on this summer. Next slide. So we've got the Healdsburg High School front entry project and the Healdsburg Elementary roof, HVAC, accessibility, and front entry. It's kind of a smush together. The high school project. So the high school project includes that entire front parking lot is in disrepair. And so this was sort of combining a few things in this project. Grinding that parking lot up. We're actually going to grind it and not off-haul it, but grind it and reuse it. And it's sort of a different way of doing new asphalt, which I think is very cool. And then redo the accessible parking in that area and just completely redo that parking lot. The other big piece of this that I know Chris has been really excited about for a long time is the new entry with monument sign and sort of giving a fresh look to the front of the campus. We've been talking about this, I don't know, a long time since I've been working here. So it includes that, and it includes a new monument sign and seat wall, and then freshening up that front planter that goes along Powell Avenue. It's got some beautiful, well-established crepe myrtles in it, but underneath it needs some freshening up, giving that some good new landscaping. And then the Grove. The Grove has been deteriorating for years. We just recently had a tree go down, so that area needs some freshening up. And one of the things we really wanted to do with that was not just, make it a new landscape area, but let's turn it into a learning area. And so when we talk to our landscape architect, we're looking at putting in new accessible paths all through there, creating little outdoor learning areas like we have around other parts of the campus. So this includes new trees, plants consistent with the rest of the campus, sort of that continuing everything we've done around campus in that area. Taking into consideration maintenance, trying to, keep our maintenance down, plant things that don't heave concrete and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to walk you through some plans.
Can I ask you a quick question on the learning areas? And I love that idea. Are they being used? Will they be used? Okay.
The current areas out front are,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would say I always see, actually, in Healdsburg Henge, as we love, I always call it, out front, and then even where Linus's classroom is, there's a nice little area out there that gets used constantly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is just an overhead view. The areas I kind of put in green, those are the main areas that are getting major updating and landscaping, and then there at the corner where you see the number 4, that's sort of the area where we're going to have our new entry plaza that I'll show you. And then you see our parking lot that we're talking about, just totally redoing and fixing all the divots, and the trees in there have made some of the asphalt all over the place. We are, so the trees along what I'll call Prince Street and Powell Avenue, those trees are all staying. They're really beautifully multi-crepe myrtles. Those are all staying. We're just doing landscaping and ground cover underneath them. The trees in the parking lot are actually all pretty diseased. Some of them are dying. And so they're going to get replaced with better new trees that will then not break up the adjacent asphalt and cause the problems that we have.
But there will be trees in the parking lot.
Yes. So the 6, you see 6 little slivers in there that have current trees in them. We're replacing those trees because they're all dying or dead.
Thank you. Because there was a big fight about it years ago and they made that parking lot without any trees in it, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Shade's
You
nice.
need,
Then they
It's a
chose the
shame.
wrong trees to put in.
Yeah.
That's
well,
okay. Yeah.
but at least they put something in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of them actually doesn't have a tree in it anymore anyways.
Right.
And then another one, like one of them is leaning and dying. Anyway, so we're replacing all of those.
What is the funny looking little spots that are in the upper left corner of that parking lot? Are those like
the ones that like have like hashes?
Yeah.
Those are your accessible handicap parking
Okay, thank you.
So because of code, we will be updating those, making sure that they're there. The little dots that you see, that's
It's
what
the
we show
walkway.
DSA. That's path of travel. So that shows how somebody gets from those to the campus.
Gotcha. Because there's also accessible parking spots in the student lot, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but we've already redone the
Yeah,
student
yeah,
lot,
that one's
so-
done. Okay.
Okay, next slide. So this is the entrance, and I threw a photo in there. I know the reader board's no longer there. That was the photo I had. We've got these big sort of junipers that are messy, and that's going to go away. That old sign that's there is going to go away. And we're actually making this nice curved area in that spot that in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see we'll have an H in the concrete made out of brick. And that curved piece is a nice seat wall. So you can sit there, kids can wait for their friends in the morning there, whatever. And then behind it, we have this Healdsburg High. It's a very different monument sign, but I think the idea was to go for something new, something more modern, something fresh. We've had some conversations. It won't say campus because we know that's the campus. The H we're going to make bigger, maybe put it in the center. But I think the first sort of hump of that is like 5 feet tall, and then it gets up to like 7 feet tall. So it's going to be this nice, beautiful presence kind of artwork piece behind this seat wall. So you'll get a really good, and it's got some new olive trees behind it that tie in again with the rest of the campus, and then landscaping you see along the sidewalk there. So just freshening that up. We're doing the parking lot because that needs to be done maintenance-wise, but giving a really beautiful entrance to the campus.
So is the I'm sorry. Is the kind of footprint the same as what's there now with the fence and the sign, or is it a little different?
So what it is right now there's those juniper trees. We're kind of just taking that space of the juniper trees and making it that nice plaza. So it'll be a bigger space. Right now you basically just have the crosswalk and the little curb cut there with that.
Right.
This will extend behind it. So it'll be a little courtyard area.
Cool.
And like, do we want people hanging out there on that busy corner? I'm a little like, seriously, like a seating area. It's kind of a crazy corner, especially during pickup and drop off and stuff. So like,
I see kids hanging out there, like either waiting for their friends that are coming or maybe, meeting up. So I think giving them a little bit safer backspace, not right on the corner,
right,
probably a good
right
thing.
On the sidewalk or on the curb.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the front entry piece. If you go to the next slide, and I'm sorry this is broken up into two. It's just how the architect did it, so you could actually see it if you try to put it all in one. But this is that curve you see on the left-hand side is like if you're pulling in towards the library. And so that's where the grove starts. And you can see the landscape architect did a nice sort of, again, similar, that curve, like a curved area with seat wall, welcoming you into that, what is the grove now. And then there are these little mounds. We have 2 of them with the synthetic turf like we've done in other areas. And one of the really great things about that is it's an area you can sit on. It doesn't retain water. It's dry right after rain. But it creates sort of, again, you have these walkways around these little pods areas. So you can see kids, sitting on them, hanging out. I mean, they do some of that in that area right now, but it's not super inviting. And there's, it's not a really great place to be right now.
It's dirt.
This will be inviting, and it provides...
There's some weeds.
And weeds. Dirt and weeds.
Dirt's weeds, yeah. So it'll provide those areas. And you could also see, like, if you had a bunch of kids sitting on that, you could have somebody then talking to them. And you could do a small class in learning out there. So there's 2 of those. This is the left-hand one. And then if you go to the next slide.
Circular seat wall too? Is that right?
Here.
Not on both sides?
Well, yeah, circular. Yeah. So again, circular seat walls, smaller little group areas. again, getting those groups of kids together either for just social, having a place to do that during breaks, and or small group instruction. So here's the second one, and then towards the Smith Robinson gym, there's a larger one, and that one you could probably fit, 15, 20 kids at a time in that spot. The trees, I tried to give some differentiation. It's, I'm used to looking at plans, but for the general population, there's 3 different main trees we're doing in here. And so we're doing the Chinese pistache, one, because it doesn't mess up your concrete, it doesn't create trip hazards. It grows really fast, so shade will be more readily available sooner. So that's the
beautiful.
I think that's the yellow one. And then we've got gosh, I can't even read that here.
Crepe myrtle and
crepe
Western
myrtles,
redbud.
more crepe myrtles to tie in with the rest of the campus. And are the other ones the
Redbud.
Western redbud? Yeah, which is a native tree around here. So again, trying to balance that native tree, but also picking up things that make sense for long-term maintenance and quick growing shade and all those kinds of things. So, and then there's other landscaping around those, obviously the same mixture of native plants and then other, low maintenance, low water plants around all of those areas. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm hoping it becomes another really great outdoor space. The kids will love it. So any questions on that?
Do students eat lunch out there? I know the original plan with the Redwood Grove was picnic tables and that kids would eat lunch, but then I know a few years back it was sort of like, can't really keep an eye on them out there.
No, they're allowed to eat lunch out there. It's just not as inviting as it once was. And then we blocked it off for a month because a tree fell and we had to remove 3 more diseased trees that could have fallen on a child. So, no, but it's still a gathering spot for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully this will be more interesting than the parking lot too, right? Like this keeps them a little
Well, yeah, they used to definitely go
was
sit in their car or sit in the backs of the trucks. Oh, good.
Yeah, and I do want to say, it's tragic to watch the Redwood Grove go away, but I'd done some research that it was planted in the late 50s, early 60s, so we're at, 60 years plus of those trees, and I think when you plant a redwood tree in a parking lot, there's going to be a definite lifespan to it, right? Exactly.
Well,
and we had to remove a bunch of roots out of Smith Robinson Gym when they were buckling the floor.
Yeah, I was gonna say if
so
I got to see those roots.
It's a bummer to lose them because they're a very prominent kind of landmark on the campus, but we just had to pay for an arborist to come to make sure no more trees are going to fall on kids in the next 6 months, and we're nervous about after that, right? So
has anybody expressed concern about those trees going away?
They will.
Not in many years, but they will. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
You did 5 years ago, I think. Yeah.
I unfortunately they have been slowly.
Yeah,
we've had to remove a few over the years because they're just deteriorating.
And to that point, I have heard from the community about the concern, not about taking them out, about not taking them out. We need to get rid of them. We don't want them to fall down. They're done.
Yeah.
I was really glad. We got really lucky when the one did fall. It didn't hit a building. It didn't.
It was very lucky.
It was very lucky.
It was in middle of the night wind event. So yeah.
Tanae, so can you just tell me how high the trees are going to be when they go in? Because I'm just wondering, the thing that I am concerned about is just a perception of bareness that people might have when it's new relative to how it's looked for so many years. And I know you're not going to bring in a 20-foot whatever.
No,
so.
and again, that's something so this project's out to bid right now. So you'll be seeing that soon, hopefully, to approve. Obviously, we budget and the size of trees. I could get old trees, but then you're paying $75,000 a tree. So there's some of that, but that's part of the pistache. So I don't know, and if you guys remember, but the ones that if you're opposite of the library when you drive in the bus zone, those were planted 8 years ago, and they're already pretty big. So we'll get as big as we can afford, and if the budget allows, I might upsize them when we get the budget. But
I think too the mounds and the seating walls, it'll have a contour that even if there's not huge shade to begin with. And it wasn't if you think about the front of the school when we put it in with the Healdsburg hinge, however you called that, even though the olive trees, they still don't give a ton of shade. They're growing and we're cutting them up, but it is, it's still a gathering place that kids love.
Yeah.
And there was never a perception of, oh, it's bare. So, yeah.
I really, really, even just like reviewing the packet without hearing the description, I thought the plans looked great. I just know that, quite often we hear about it afterwards, like, this doesn't look like it used to look, and why is this better? And, that kind of.
Yeah. And it took 60 years for them to grow that way. So, yeah.
No Charlie Brown trees, I promise.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this before I move on? Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I will just say that I always am a fan of just getting ahead of the talk and, just getting word out toward the end of the school year that this cool thing is going to be happening. And yes, the redwoods are just be transparent.
Yeah.
We'll try to get it in the trib so it's out there. So, yeah.
Can I ask what we do with the redwood wood?
We've had some. We actually, when we cut the first couple trees down when we were doing the gym, we had redwood for a really long time and we couldn't get rid of it. But then we've
so a bunch of the trees that came down lately, they milled, and then Todd has used it in CASA either for projects or picnic tables around campus, things like that. So.
Todd rented, got someone to come out and plane the wood, and $5,000 is paid for itself.
Wow, easily, yeah.
Because they sell the products as a fundraiser, so it ends up covering the cost. And then in addition to that, the last time, the ones that were just taken down, they just grind them up, and you'll see a big pile of redwood. That's all that's left of the tree. It's crazy. It doesn't turn into much.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Then it's mulch that we spread around campuses. Yeah.
Is it free? No, I'm kidding.
It's not free. No.
All right. Moving on to our other project, which we've been talking about for a long time too. So this is the kind of a similar sort of project at Healdsburg Elementary. And this includes redoing all the HVAC at the main classroom building and the flat roofs, the shingle roofs at both buildings. The tile roof remains. That's staying as is and not getting replaced. And I was, to bird walk for just a second, I was explaining this is going to be a really interesting project because if you've ever paid attention when you're in the MPR, there's an attic and a basement at this campus, and all of the HVAC is in an attic with a 5-foot by 3-foot opening 12 feet up in the air in the MPR. That's the only way you can get into that attic. So the contractor's got quite a job getting everything into the attic and out of the attic through that hole up there. So it's kind of an interesting project. I've never had anything quite like this before. So a lot of work to do in a couple months. And then upgrading all 3 entries to the main building to meet current accessibility requirements. That was one of the big pieces of this project, which includes a new entry plaza that will have a ramp to the front of the building. The building doesn't have a ramp currently. And then new landscaping along both sides of the front of that building. With some maintenance paths that I'll explain in a minute. And then it does include the removal of a few trees. So if you've been there, there's 2 rows of trees on both sides. The back trees don't grow very well because they're behind the other ones. They also drop all kinds of stuff on your roof. Like there was limbs up there on the roof and stuff. So they're potentially damaging your tile roof. So we're getting rid of that and then putting in also a maintenance path, because right now the maintenance crew can't actually get up there because there's nothing to really set ladders on. They can't bring their lift in there. So part of this is putting a maintenance path in there so that they can get up there and maintain the gutters and stuff of that roof. So if we go to the next slide, I didn't bring anything to show you on the roofing because roofing is roofing. Again, here you'll see the green areas where we're doing most of the exterior work in the landscaping. Next slide. So one of the big pieces when we started to design this was, this is a historic building. It is not on the historic building registry because I verified that, but we wanted to make sure that we maintained that look. I see pictures on Facebook come up all the time. People talk, show the old pictures. This, and we wanted to make sure we kind of kept that look and didn't go away from that. So the landscape architect kind of looked at that and was trying to make sure that we got a ramp up there, but didn't destroy that look of the steps. And so what you'll see is they actually build a new
apron out in front of the existing one with new steps, very similar to the ones there, and then put the ramp off to the side. So it's not like you're now looking at a ramp going up the center, but it's very tastefully done and then landscaped around. It also creates on either side of those little steps, again, nice little seating areas. We've got a couple benches in there. So one of the things about this school, there's not a parking lot. People come, they might come early because they want to wait and parking and all that stuff. So it creates a little space out there where parents could wait a few minutes before school is out for their kids. We're keeping the flagpole in the middle. A new monument sign. This monument sign will be very similar, almost identical to the one that we did at Fitch Mountain last year. It's kind of on the bottom side there. You'll see the square. Yeah, it's the rectangle there next to the existing sidewalk sign. And then just nice landscaping all along the front there. So just really kind of freshen up the look of that, and get us our ramp up to the front. Next. So on either side of the stairs, there's two little benches, sort of in those areas surrounded by landscaping, and then one side surrounded by the ramp. And then, Chris, when we were looking at this, we actually added landscaping, which usually districts don't want to do because landscaping is hard to maintain. But we wanted to make sure too, the front of the ramp wasn't, this big thing out in front of it. So we made sure we had landscaping around the ramp too, so that it gives it a softness and a nice looking presence. No, not all of them. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah. So this is the west side of the main building. So like if you're headed towards Rec Park, this is that side there. So there's 2 rows. The trees are 2 rows. We're just taking out the back row because that's the row that isn't growing very well because it's behind the other trees. The front ones are staying. And then we're planting a few new near the sort of the edge of that new courtyard there, and then just landscaping that whole area. You'll see on the left-hand side, that's our updated accessible ramp and stairs towards the kitchen. So that's getting updated. And then in the very top, you'll see that's my landscape path. That's where now the maintenance crew can actually get a lift in there. They can maintain the windows, the gutters, all the things. It's a tall building. Again, it's got an attic and it's got a basement. So, and then the next slide is very similar, but this is the other side. So this is the side going down North Street towards the field. Very similar, and again, redoing the accessible ramp and stairs, and then landscaping all the way down to the edge there where the parking lot is. So. North. Yeah. Yeah, so basically, if you think of the main original building, not the kinder wing, but the main original building, both sides, both sides of that main building, all the way down to the end of the building. So there's a ramp on either end. We're going all the way to the ramps. That's all staying as is. We have to do some new accessible parking striping in that little chain link area, but we're not doing any new landscaping in that area right now. Parking. I don't think. Okay, we can look at that. I didn't think there was a lot of landscaping there, but I could be wrong. Yeah, just weeds. Okay. Okay,
We'll check it out.
I will make sure when I'm looking at this and when we're doing this project, we will pay attention to that area.
Have teachers and staff at Healdsburg Elementary had an opportunity to respond to these plans at all?
I know I met with the principal, and I believe she has shown them, but I was not part of that.
Okay.
So we could probably report back, but I'm pretty sure that they've been out to the staff.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure because sometimes, people who are using the building all the time know all its quirks that need to be fixed. Yeah. And then I was just wondering, will there be handrails on the new stairs too?
Yeah, actually, this one, this is a landscape plan, so they may not show it, but code requires handrails.
Okay.
So I know on the previous, like this one, you can see there's actually going to be 4 new handrails going up the front there.
Okay.
And then on the west side, there's going to be, I know, handrails near the library and the kitchen as well. Yeah, you see 2 there up the steps.
Okay, cool. That's great because those stairs are treacherous even just for a normal person.
Yeah.
And I remember carrying my little kids up those stairs and being like, you know.
You talking about the front ones?
Yeah.
I always laugh. I always say I can't walk on this side because my legs don't go up that high. So yeah, they're very tall on the left.
Thank you. This is really exciting, and I absolutely love this beautiful, historic, though it's not listed, building that we have. And you know, I love to look at old Healdsburg ephemera online sometimes on eBay, and there's always a nice representation of postcards of this building going all the way back to the 30s.
Yep.
So it's really cool, and I think really deserving of a facelift and a much more useful and safe entry as well.
And one thing, and I just thought of it, and it wasn't in my presentation, but I wanted to make sure we mentioned it. Another small piece of this project is if you live in the area, you've seen the city has been putting reclaimed water down the road. We are, as part of this project, tying into the reclaimed water for the field. So that was something that wasn't a big visual piece, but it'll be part of the project.
Tile roof. What is the state of the tile part of the roof that isn't being replaced?
You know, I haven't done an assessment on that. The last time I remember an assessment being done, Glenn was here, and we did some repairs at that point. I haven't had any reports of leaks lately, but it's something we'll probably look into as our next prioritization of bond work comes through.
So that's on this slide. We're using old bond money. I can't remember the measure D. I think it was measure D.
Yeah.
From like 10 years ago ish, 9 years ago. Yeah. And then that's on the high school project, and the HES project will be with new bond proceeds from Measure R that just passed in November.
Yeah, and so, this was the last scheduled project for that, the secondary bond.
Yeah.
So when this project is done, we'll do our tally and see, what little bits are left and go from there.
Did we put up signage that says, bond Measure R at work, or however they do it?
We've done it in the past. Yeah.
Just because
we will for Measure
ask,
R.
They do ask.
Good idea.
They say, "What about that money? What's happening?"
Yeah. I do think that people are going to notice the new, they're going to notice the new gateway to Healdsburg High School, and that might be a good time to give a shout out of thanks to the voters for that because. I think those moments where they're like, oh, look at that. It's all fancy and nice, and of course there's all the work that's gone on behind the gateway, but.
Yeah, definitely. We can look at that. Any questions? I think that's my last slide.
Thank you.
And that's all this summer, right?
That is all this summer. So I'll be back after summer to show you finished pictures.
Cool. Looking forward to that. All right, moving on to.
So we are going to Title I now. Yes. We're going to skip the high school bell schedule.
Yes.
Thanks, Tanea, for being here.
11.2 C, Title I program.
All right, I'm going to try to go fast because we're at 8:15. I got 45 minutes and a lot to do, so I'll go fast.
Can I address the elephant in the room? We don't know what's going to happen to Title I with all the federal funding talk, so
yeah.
You can ask, but we don't have an answer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, titles used to have their own reporting mechanism. Now that we have the LCAP, it's part of that, but we kind of have a history here of talking about Title I and Title III on their own. So that's what this is. Title I funding is for socioeconomically disadvantaged students. In order to make sure that they have equal opportunity to meet the learning standards. So we use Title I funds at Marcy Becerra Academy. and also at Healdsburg Elementary School, meaning both Fitch Mountain campus and HES campus. School-wide programs are allowable when 40% of the students in the school are from low-income families. We meet that by many, many percentages. So it's not just for a particular group of students. We can use the funds for school-wide. Busy table, but I think it's worth seeing kind of her trajectory here. Draw your eyes to the far right. It's old data because it gets certified by the state and then also by the feds, but you can see that since things have changed of how we can qualify families as low income has become less arduous. It used to that they have to fill out a form. And now we have multiple ways of making sure that we understand whether students are low income. So if a family qualifies for EBT, then automatically they're considered low income. If neither parent has graduated from high school, they're considered low income. So the numbers there you can see in TK through 5, the 23-24 school year, 80%. Marcy Becerra up at 73%, so very high numbers overall at HUSD. You can see back in 2016-27, it was around 57%. I think those are falsely lower numbers because of the hoops that families in the school district had to jump through. So while I think we've seen a somewhat of an increase, and Debbie could probably speak to this a little bit more on the budget side of things, we have seen an increase, but I don't think it's as large as it appears on these slides, if that makes sense, right? There has been some increase in percentage of low income, but not to the degree that it appears on this slide. This I talked about, these are the criteria that would qualify a family, a student as socioeconomically disadvantaged. That's what SED is. So we love our acronyms. I'm gonna move on. We don't have to do this because we don't get $500,000. We get about $200,000, so it's not applicable to us. And none of our nonprofit private schools choose to take Title I funds. However, St. John's does participate in Title II. So every year we conduct a needs assessment, increasingly looking at the California Data Dashboard, since that is now a very robust platform. And so I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things that we look at, always also looking at STAR and disaggregating as much as we can. Some of the data is a little easier to disaggregate by socioeconomic status and others isn't. Sometimes thankfully it's knowing our kids. So one thing that we look at a lot is chronic absenteeism and suspension rate. We really want to keep our finger on this. So you can see overall at the top, HUSD has decreased chronic absenteeism since 2022, right? That's what we want to see. We want to see decreases in these numbers. And then we will also, for suspensions, want to see decreases in these numbers. So the color coding is the coding that you see on the data dashboard. A reminder that red is not good, orange is better, yellow is fine, right? Work to do. Green is you're doing great, and blue is outstanding. So you can see suspension rates have looked a lot better. I will say one thing about Marcy Becerra Academy. Wonderful Karina Chavez is being paid through a grant that we received because the suspension rate was high at Marcy Becerra last year. That's a 1-year grant. The suspension rate has decreased. I know it's this one. We are working our tails off to keep her position in the district. So I just wanted to put that, the suspension rate jumped. It has decreased, which means the grant's going to go away, which is good. It also means that funding is going to go away. And so we're working hard to make sure that all the work, getting those families here tonight that you saw was a big part of what Karina's been doing for that school. So other data that we look at is English language arts and mathematics. This is really, the meat. If the first one is if the kids aren't there, they're not learning, right? If they're absent or they're suspended, then they can't access the standards. So we want to pay attention to that. Again, these numbers are headed in the right direction. If you look at 2022, doesn't have any color coding because we didn't take CASP for 2 years, basically. So there was no comparison data, which means there's no color coding. But you can see a nice trajectory there of improvement for the most part. We did take a fall in mathematics at the junior high. I have absolute certainty that we're going to see it jump again next year. I was at their faculty meeting today, and they're getting ready for CASP and putting a lot of energy into it, even with Principal Odeto's maternity leave. So priorities, like I said, meet the state's academic standards, a lot of targeted supports, small group instruction, and then the social emotional piece. So you'll see that's how we spend the money. I'm going to jump here. This is a chart showing the blue is what we got, and then the orange is whether it's over or under the year before. So you can see in 21-22, there was a big dip in funding. You can remember who the president was at that time. And then things have improved a little bit over the last couple of years. So you can see then all of a sudden in 22-23, we see more. Part of that also has to do not only with changes in federal government officials, but also percentage of low-income students, right? This is a per pupil amount that we get. So by us being able to certify more students as low income, we get more money. So last year, this is now audited expenditures. I often do this presentation earlier in the school year, but it's been a busy year. So this is last year, what we spent the money on. So in Healdsburg Elementary, the paraprofessionals that provide small group instruction and allow us to do the station rotation are largely paid, well, not largely, but partial salary is through Title I. And then we have additional school psychologists. A district of our size would normally have one school psychologist. We have 3. So the Title I funds is used. That person does ERMS counseling, which is educationally related mental services, mental health support services. And so they do one-on-one counseling with students. And then, you saw the investment that's been made with Big Picture Learning. That $10,000 was paid for our contract with Big Picture, and the support that we get from Isaac Eggy, and making sure that we know what we're doing and we get good ideas. And this is this year. So this is what we currently have budgeted. So you'll see a small change, and that we've parsed out a little bit less in paraprofessionals, a little bit less in school psychologists, and put some funds toward a behavior technician position that we have supporting the elementary. Again, if students aren't in class, if they're blowing out and they're sitting in the office, or they're constantly having to be, redirected, they're not learning. And so by having a behavior technician focusing on our youngest kids, supporting the students, supporting the teachers to support the students, we feel like it's a good investment with Title I, and then continuing the Big Picture Learning. We probably will not spend that $10,000 on contract services with Big Picture. We're kind of weaning ourselves off of that. So thankfully, Isaac, his family, and is a community member, and I think will continue to be there for us when we need some help. But we're going to redirect that funds to other things. You can see the program's on their feet. So the intensive coaching that they've had over the last couple of years is not needed. So,
Erin?
Yeah.
Remind me, we don't submit for Title I for the junior high and the high school, right?
It's district funds. So we can
But we
decide.
just choose to focus on these 2 areas.
Exactly.
Thank
We
you.
can
That's
decide. That said, we have to, any school that has, I think it's 70% or more low-income kids, districts have to use money. So Marcy, we didn't spend Title I money at Marcy for many, many years. And then the law changed and said, hey, school districts, because it's hard to, I'll just say it's hard to use Title I money in high schools. It's a more complicated data that you have to provide, and it's a lot more paperwork, honestly. And there's some philosophy of using this money when the children are young. You get more bang for your buck. But the law changed that said any school that serves 70% or more, you have to use a certain percentage of your Title I funds for that school. So that flipped the switch for us with Marcy, and I think it makes sense too. Yeah, but we could use it at the junior high and the high school, but we choose not to. It's $200,000, so it doesn't go super far. Yeah. And that's all for Title I.
Thank you. Moving on to the LCAP.
So as Debbie get the slides up, this is required by the California Department of Ed mid-year report and update on the financials. It's a broad brushstroke at this point. Really what it makes district leadership do is kind of take a peek at the data in the middle of the year. So you guys have an elaborate chart in your packet that shows you kind of summarizing where we're at. So we talk about that as a district leadership team, comparing, the funding that we're using. Are we moving the needle on areas that we need to be moving the needle on? So just a little recap, we've got 4 LCAP goals now. So we have a specific goal for Marcy Becerra Academy, and that's also driven partly because of funding requirements. I'll get into that when we do more LCAP stuff, but this is our, 4 goals: rigor, relevance, relationships. And then when we have an MBA focused goal and just broad brushstrokes of what the actions are in terms of then, what we do in the school sites. Here's all the data that we're tracking for each of those goals. So this is all in the LCAP, but we have to show we're monitoring these things that we say we want to move the needle on. So a couple of highlights, kind of a mid-year. We're the only unified school district in Sonoma County that's in the green. We have decreased the suspension rate, so this is district-wide. We have decreased the chronic absenteeism. We're in the yellow. We are in green in English language arts as a district. We've made improvements in mathematics. We're now in the yellow, and I think the way things are going, we're gonna see some improvement there. English learner progress, we're the second best of all the unified districts in Sonoma County. I mentioned Cloverdale beat us out, largely because they had a lot of kids who needed to be RFEP'd and they pushed them over. But we've generally held the title of, of the unifieds being the strongest in LP. And we've significantly decreased the number of long-term English language learners. So, in terms of priorities, I've mentioned this to you before: improving services and support for students with disabilities, and a transition to a push-in from a pull-out model. So instead of pulling kids out of the classroom into separate rooms with not their peers and not their regular ed teachers, we're pushing special educators into the regular ed classrooms and providing support in that way. Through the PLCs, the professional learning communities, we've had a lot of talk about, all means all. All of us need to focus on all of the students, and they're all our kids. It's not fix-it fairies who we send out and somebody fixes them and then they bring them back, but all means all of us are in it for all of the kids. And I think that we're making some good headway on that through the PLC movement. Implementation of multi-tiered systems of support is well on its way. Using that early warning system, the cost teams are, I think, more and more effective. Focusing on Tier 1 instruction, right? We've got to get it right the first time. And so identifying essential standards, using common formative assessments, making sure that we have instructional routines across and expectations across all the classrooms in a building. And then we've increased our Tier 2 supports, particularly at the junior high and high school. You guys heard about academic workshop. We've got ELA boost, math boost at the junior high, and also helping teachers understand what Tier 2 in a classroom looks like in the junior high and high school. We do a lot of station rotation and helping students who are struggling on any particular thing in elementary, but that's a little more challenging at the junior high and high school. It can't be done, so we're working on providing some ideas, data, professional development, and support around how do you do Tier 2 in your classroom at the junior high and high school. And then for long-term English language learners, I've said this before, it's more about motivation and social emotional learning, social emotional support for our long-term English language learners at the high school, and less about the content, right? You saw tonight, it's about motivation. It's about feeling part of a community. It's about feeling like I can do this. My teachers believe in me. And we have new curriculum at the high school for both newcomers and long-term, but also doing a lot more motivation and SEL support. This is a brief. This basically captures a point in time, right? This is a dipstick. You can see the numbers match. Our accountant, Lynette, and I and Debbie work really hard to make sure that what we put in the LCAP is actually being spent in the way that we said it would. So we're on target here. We're not seeing any big sways of like, oh, we didn't get that project off the ground and now it's a $60,000 sway. You're going to see a lot more detail in the second interim next month on this. So that's just a quick point of time.
So those numbers were not a snapshot of how much we've spent so far this year, but really that we're on track for meeting our budget. Okay.
Right. So we take a snapshot. We have the spreadsheets that are showing us, are we percentage wise? Are we there? And we are. Yeah. 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 By goal and action.
Love that they call this the parent version. Like it's so simplified for the average person to totally open it up and understand it.
Yeah. The parent overview budget overview for parents that even educators have a hard time understanding. Yeah. And it's a template we have to use. I don't get to fiddle with that. I would love to fiddle with that and make it better, but I don't get to. Yeah. Well, I would do it if I was allowed, but that's what we have to submit. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Erin.
Moving on, do we have any reports? We have had a report tonight? We do. All right.
Still here. I want to say that even though sometimes I am hard on you and I'm pushing you, but that is my role and that is my job. Okay. So, and I do put the data out there for you to look at, and I just want you to feel or understand where we're coming from. But I also on the flip side is that I want to express some gratitude for working in this district, right? We have great people to work with. I get along with the people I work with. I like the people at my school site. I work well with the district administration. And when I speak with my colleagues, they're also grateful of working in our district. In light of what's happening in Santa Rosa right now, I mean, we're quite fortunate, right? And I mean, we're fortunate to be where we're at, teaching great kids. I came back to Healdsburg High School in 2004 to teach the kids of the community. And that's why I did, right? I worked with Erin at Windsor, and there's something different about teaching in students that are not in your community. So I just want to say, I'm not doomsday person and always on your case, okay? I am here, and we're grateful also, but I do want to hold you accountable.
We appreciate your honesty on both sides.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mike. All right, do we have a CSEA report? Student trustee? No, because he's at a soccer game. And
Hopefully winning. Judy, do we have an update? No? Herm. Okay.
do we have a board of trustee update? Saying none. All right. 11.1 school business. C. Healdsburg Unified School District calendar for 25-26.
We have a first read of a calendar for next year. We have gone through the normal machinations of calendars, and HADA has signed off. So this is just a first read opportunity for you guys to ask any questions if you have any about it.
Cool.
I need to find it. It's really
looks great.
Pretty much the same calendar we've had for the last few years.
Yeah. I think the change of PD maybe.
Yeah, we did decide to move our fall PD day. So we like to have our PD day in association with Halloween.
Oh.
Specifically the day after Halloween to keep the children away from the teachers post sugar rush.
Yeah.
And Halloween's a Saturday. So that wasn't a necessity this year. And we thought maybe getting it a little closer to the beginning of October so that we're back in PD after we've done whatever we've worked on for the first 6-7 weeks. So, yeah.
Cool.
And then in 2 years, we'll probably, or a year, I guess, we'll move it back to Monday once Halloween goes to Sunday, right? So,
So that Friday off is going to seem a little random to the students.
It will. Yeah. A lot of districts still do it in tandem with
My
whatever
district does
is
it.
not Columbus Day anymore. What is it?
Indigenous People Day.
Indigenous Peoples Day. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that happens quite often.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to be happening with that.
I will say too, part of the reasoning is we're watching other district calendars. And as somebody who has a child in another district, and we hear this from other parents who work, it's a day that is commonly off in other school districts. So it makes it a little easier for the families.
For daycare and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, you know, just so you understand, our starting point is usually Santa Rosa City. So they kind of create the calendar that most of the districts riff off of in the county, just because a lot of our workforce have kids over there. So, and the JC is usually on a similar schedule, et cetera.
The first day of school is August 14th.
Correct.
That's really early.
It
I
was
mean,
the
it's always right around
it was-
there, but
I think it was the 15th this year. Yeah. So
yeah,
just
I
kind
know.
of where it
just
falls.
sounds early, doesn't
I
it? Like in
know.
the first half of the month.
Yeah. Well,
like-
like to give you reference, I was a teacher and I got married on August 15th. That's our anniversary. And then went on a honeymoon and came back 2 weeks later, had a week off, I think, and then started school post Labor Day, right?
Yeah,
So
those were
it
the
has
old
changed
days.
quite a bit.
After Labor Day.
Right.
Back in
After
my
Labor Day.
Yeah. Sounding old. Yeah.
When I was in school in Santa Rosa,
Right.
we didn't go start school.
Yeah. And that just depended on when they got picked, right? Yeah. You got me beat, Judy. Yeah.
All right, cool. Is that
That's
for
it.
that one?
There's no
All right,
vote or
cool.
anything
Thank
this
you.
time. We'll have it
Moving
on consent for the next time.
Oh yeah, moving on to 11.1 school business.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So this is the next two are kind of in tandem. This is the reflection and change of federal law. There were newly rendered Title IX rules that we passed this summer that were swiftly post-election revoked. I will say, for the most part, in terms of how it affects our students, there's really not going to be any change because we live in the state of California that still has protections for students that were reflected in the 2024 Title IX, and just because of who we are and what we do in our policies here in the school district. If we were in a different state, Louisiana, say, or Mississippi, it would potentially affect schooling for kids and how they're treated. I don't think it's going to affect us in terms of boots on the ground. It actually loosens up some of the investigatory and reporting requirements, which honestly we felt were onerous. So that part will be a benefit in our opinion. So the first action is to revoke the old Title IX, the 2024 Title IX. Yes, and then we're readopting the 2020 versions that were intact until probably July or June this year. Yeah, this past year. So
I move we revoke the 2024 Title IX. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I'll second.
And I just want to comment that I did talk to Chris today because, you know, there's a lot of crazy things happening right now, happening very quickly. And I just wanted to be sure what we talked about was like, how does this impact? What does the revocation of these things, what does it mean for our students and for our staff? And I was relieved to hear that it really wasn't going to have that kind of an impact. But I think we need to be on alert when things like this are happening now. And, you know, this isn't a hill to die on, this particular thing. But, yeah, we need to be vigilant about what changes are going to be coming and the impact they're going to have on our district. So just saying that out loud.
Heavy sigh, and now we need to vote. Huh? Yeah, we didn't do. Yeah, we
We
need
can
to vote.
vote. Okay, cool. Is it a roll call? Oh,
It's not a reso. You just.
all in favor? Sorry,
Aye.
because they already moved. Yeah.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, cool. Well, not cool, but yeah. I do not want that to get taken out of context.
So now,
Please.
understood. So now we're on to adopting the previous version of Title IX, which
So I move we adopt the
2020.
2020 board policies and administrative regulations.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Debbie, I can just take the school safety plan too. So next item is our school safety plan.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything you wanted to highlight or? Okay, excuse me. I was just going to get through it.
He's looking at the clock. I'm trying to find out what the score was. Oh, wait a minute.
Did we get to
Put this.
Yeah, really. Round of applause.
Yeah, for real.
Okay, we lost 2-0. We had a chance, 10 minutes left of the game. We didn't make it.
Good effort, Tory Hounds. Way to play, though.
Good evening. I did want to mention a few things about the safety plan. First, that Rob Smith has been working on this and revamping it and has done a really good job. And Maribel Chavez, my new admin assistant, has been a great help in putting this together and has done a lot of work on it. And I wanted to recognize them. The
Love
plan
Chavez.
basically is everything I spoke about in the first draft, but we have met with the police department and the fire department since then. And I did want to mention a couple things that we're working on. One being that the police department and fire department want an aerial view of the buildings from on top. So we're working on a way to identify the buildings from top, such as Building A, Building B, etc. And we'll also be working on signage in the front of the buildings that will match these. So cars driving up, same thing.
Okay.
And then the city has hired a new emergency response coordinator. And I'm meeting with her in March, and we are going over the reunification areas for our children and aligning them with the cities and putting us all on the same page and how we will work together if that happens and we need to use it.
So this is in case of emergency where you meet,
Where you have to
can't
leave the
come to
site.
school where you're meeting your kids.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Wow.
And then we will be practicing that. And then the
Great.
other thing I wanted to mention was that Rob Smith is working with Sonoma County Office of Education on a wildlife fire plan. And I think that is also something we need in our district, and we're going to be moving forward with that. Mm-hmm.
You said wildlife fire
I'm sorry.
Wildfire.
It's a lot of words. Wildlife.
Wildfire plan. Excuse
I
me.
actually thought that was
It's late.
pretty neat, too.
It is. To save lives. How's that?
No. That's all I got. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you.
This is an action.
All right. Do I
So
have-
wait, can I just clarify? So the police department likes to have the letter of the building on top of the building and on the side of the building?
Well, yeah, it's going to be like if they need to come in, helicopter.
Right, helicopter.
whatever. But also, like, we actually had an incident, I believe it was last year, where there was something about the cafeteria and everybody talked about, well, did the law officer even know where the cafeteria was?
Right.
So everything needs to be identified, and this will be in their plan. They know ahead of time. It shows up on their GPS.
Oh, great.
All the times when you get 911 calls, they're not necessarily going to the city. It's a remote location, and all of this will pop up on their GPS, and everybody will be able to see it from all locations.
So they'll actually know where to go.
Well, the city's doing it, and the police department, we're all working together.
That's
They're gonna
great.
do, like letters on the top of the building?
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
I assume you'll get to update your binder when this is all in place.
Yeah.
Wait, even a little thicker.
We'll make it a little bit thicker.
Okay.
I didn't even know they made binders that big. Yes. All in favor.
Second.
No, oh, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Okay,
Thank you,
then-
Debbie, and for everybody to help put the safety plan together.
You're welcome.
A lot of hard work.
The next item is selection of architect for Measure R bond. We did an RFQ for architects to bid on Measure R projects. We received 4 bids. 2 of them were disqualified right away because they didn't meet the requirements. And with the 2 remaining, administration is recommending using QKA moving forward.
Is this a lease-back kind of thing?
This is just the
thank you.
architect.
Thank you.
This is also an action item.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. All right. 2025 California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly.
Okay, so you have in front of you the single candidate that is left, who's from Rincon Valley. I don't remember her name. So we can choose to support her with your vote, or we can choose not to vote, I guess, or vote. Yeah. So.
Oh, I know Shelby. Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you like Shelby?
Yeah. I mean, I've met her in a long time, but I liked her. She's the only person from Rincon Valley that I know, I think.
There you go.
She had a very...
So Donna, you want to make a motion?
I move that we support Shelby Mueller for our district.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I read the entire packet. The last 3 pages.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. You want to call for a vote, Lupe?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Okay, last one. Renaming the East Gym to Frost Hall potentially. And let me just start by saying we don't have to vote on this right now. But we'll talk through the issue.
Okay.
We have an opportunity with the renaming of Frost Hall to Esquivel Hall, which I thought was a fantastic decision and was a wonderful ceremony. And I'm really pleased that we went that direction as a district to potentially maintain some historical memory of Chester Frost, who was on the school board for 3 or 4 years and was the principal advocate who lobbied to build the high school on its campus. In fact, we found an old picture of him breaking ground with the shovel. So much like the Drew plaque, our plan would be to have a plaque with his picture there breaking ground and kind of with the shovel and then describe who he was. And our proposal, which I am speaking with his family about, I'm actually going to visit with them on Friday, is to put it at the East Gym. Frost Hall, as long as I've been in the district, was our second gym. It was also where we did performing arts. Honestly, we just did theater there. I've never had a musical production in there. And it was in the girls' locker room was over there. It was just kind of an old space. But it was our second gym that we used for practices, et cetera. We've since built the East Gym, which sort of replaced Frost Hall, which enabled us to create a wrestling room / performing arts center. And so it seems natural to me and anybody who's been at the high school the last 20 or 30 years that it would be sort of the new Frost Hall, right, is the second gym still. So that's the proposal. Wanted to throw it out to you to have any questions or comments you might have regarding making that change. And if we want to, we can vote on it tonight, or we could wait till March too. I don't think there's a necessity to do it so quickly.
Is it appropriate to have a conversation with the family?
It is.
I'm
I'm not saying it's inappropriate. Yeah.
Wait,
I don't know. Yeah.
No.
It is not. I mean, that's part of the issue. Is it's you all are the decision makers, right? And so I don't want to give a false message. But
I mean, another alternative is just to kind of put a secondary plaque up.
Yeah, there is that. Like we could.
It talks about the history and how it was originally named.
Right.
Frost Hall, and it still.
We actually have
legacy.
several plaques commemorating some teachers that were on staff. I'm not even sure how they got in there, but they're in the main hallway. So there is kind of like this historical right by the office. So that's another spot.
I know.
So
Just saying.
I mean, I am curious to hear what comes out of your conversation with the family before we make a decision about what to do. I'm a little concerned that having a previous Frost Hall and another Frost Hall 2.0 might be a little confusing.
Yep.
Can we call it Frost Gym?
We could call it the Chester Frost Gym.
Yeah, and I honestly, I would really like to hear what comes out of the conversation before I would be ready to make a decision about it. But but I do think that some kind of recognition is appropriate, and that's all.
Any other comments?
Well, I have a really sarcastic comment.
Probably we could talk later.
We are,
Yeah.
we are being recorded.
Yes, in the audience.
Well,
Of
You gotta
course
put in
you
a card.
can.
Did you fill out a card?
You don't even have to fill
Mike
out
can
You can
hear
come up.
this.
Okay, go ahead.
When my husband worked for a long time at Healdsburg High School, we would always laugh and say that it was designed by failed architectural students. And because no, the school itself. So the school itself was not a beautiful school, and it's had all sorts of peculiar things about it. It has. It has.
All right, Karen.
I would just like to make a comment that, of course, I want to acknowledge Mr. Frost, and I do think we should honor him in some way. I don't necessarily think it should be a gym. I feel that if he was one of the people to break ground, that maybe a plaque at the front of the school in the hallway would be appropriate. That's just my thought. I do think that the wrestling hall, where Drew Esquivel Hall is now, is very appropriately named and is very meaningful. But I do think acknowledging Mr. Frost and creating the plaque, and I just don't think a gym is necessary, but I think acknowledging him in some way in a hallway, because no,
At the
No,
entrance way.
I just
At the
mean-
entrance.
no, I just
The
meant
entrance.
because in the entrance, because he broke the ground. He was the founding person to break the ground of the high school. Yeah. That's my thought.
And I'm not directly responding to public
But
comment
I'm here to
because that's against the law.
Yeah.
But I do think that we have a little bit of a precedent of having the names of current trustees or of the contemporary trustees for the breaking ground of our buildings are it's definitely on FMC, right? Prominently
they did at FMC.
featured at the front.
I think
And
the junior high.
so in a way, it's kind of, it's appropriate to acknowledge the people who were there and made decisions about the building of the school.
Right.
With a plaque and recognition at the entrance seems like an excellent idea, or, somewhere adjacent.
Okay, so not hearing a motion, I will meet with the family and we'll bring this back in April.
Yes,
March.
March.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And with that concludes the Board of Trustee. Oh, do we have any reports, comments, or requests of information? No. Okay. So, and we do not. Yes, of course.
The fifth graders are going to go to science camp in a couple of weeks out in West Marin. And I'm only volunteering for the first day, so I won't be there for the whole thing. But I know they had an amazing time last year, and I can't wait to tell you all more about it. And maybe we'll celebrate our success with it at some point. But they're very excited.
That's awesome. I have a quick sad report. The girls'
Yes.
basketball team lost to Morrow Catholic tonight too. So we're 0 for 2. Oh, yeah. We're waiting on the boys or the girls' soccer team. Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, well, we are not going to go back to closed session. So the next regular board meeting will be on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025, at the library. So don't come here. Go to the library. Deadlines to submit. Yeah, regular.
Special for the.
Yeah.
What book?
The deadline to submit agenda items would be Monday, March 3rd, and then backup material March 5th. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you so much.
10-2.